from the News Channel 5 Network. This is Que-pasa-Nashville.
Bienvenidos and welcome to Que-pasa-Nashville. My name is Cristina Allen and thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the Hispanic businesses, and my guest is Raymond Arroyo, who is Chairman-elect of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Arroyo, muchísimas gracias. Thank you for being here.
I'm delighted to be here, Cristina.
I'm so glad I snagged you because you are a national voice, and this is a local programming, but again, thank you, but also thank you for bringing your voice on the big scale of what Hispanics growth business-wise, demographic population mean, because you have a pulse on that most people don't have. So we'll begin with, tell me exactly what the U.S. Hispanic Chamber's purpose is as it relates to not just Hispanic businesses, but businesses as a whole, American businesses.
Sure. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce does one thing that you can divide into two. We can talk about mission and vision, but that gets lost in people as they listen to. So we actually, as an entity, as an institution, we create and then expand opportunities for Hispanic-owned businesses. The 4.1 Hispanic-owned businesses, 4.1 million Hispanic-owned businesses across the U.S. We work closely with them, with the chambers that make up the world of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we create and or expand opportunities for them.
So let's go a little deeper, and so when you say 4.1...
One is a new number.
That's a new number, 4.1 million businesses, Hispanic businesses in the United States. And with that, do we know their economic impact they make on the economy?
They do. They make almost $1 billion in economic impact.
That's with a B.
With a B. And it's almost like 850 billion, so we can round it up to, 850 million, we can round it up to $1 billion.
So as we even take it down, because that's a big number, even in Middle Tennessee, in Nashville, Davidson County, 29% of small business owners are foreign-born. With the population of the Latinos here in Middle Tennessee being dominant, we know a lot of them are those. And we're not just talking about the restaurants or the little tiendas, but we're talking law firms, core businesses that stimulate the economy here. So it does trickle down when you say that big number. We do see that growth in Nashville, which is making Nashville a great city because of our diversity.
Indeed.
So as you look at your programmings, how many chapters do you have throughout the U.S.?
Yeah, we have, and we work closely with, honestly, I don't even know how many chapters.
We have
chambers
200.
No.
Oh.
We work with about 220 of them, but the chambers, there are many more who may not be totally members of them today. But we count chambers who have paid their dues to us.
That makes sense, yeah, they're members,
right? So they're probably 300 or 400 chambers, but there are 220 or so that we work with on a regular basis, and they're all over the country.
And so we have two chambers here. We have the Tennessee Latin Chamber of Commerce, and then we have the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Both of them were founded in the year 2000, and both have the same mission and objectives. One day we hope they merge. We hope that they see that as a possibility. Do you see that in other cities happening like that?
I do, but not like Nashville. So let me talk a little bit about that, and we go back to Nashville, because I have a comment to make. In Miami, as an example, there are probably around 8 or 9 chambers, Hispanic chambers. But instead of being called Hispanic Chamber, one is the Cuban American, one is the Colombian American, another one is the Puerto Rican Chamber. So they haven't adopted the Latino word, right? And from a national perspective, they identify themselves with being from where they're from, and that creates some level of power, but also division, because then the corporate America doesn't know where to go. You take that,
and that's key. Corporate America does not know where to go. That's the key thing here.
It is. It really makes a difference. So in Nashville, we have 2 very powerful chambers that are led by very powerful, influential, smart people. One of them I see being closer to the business needs of this community, and the other one is more closely associated with the social and civic related needs of this community. So together, some of the work does interface with one another, but for the most part, that's the way I see them work. There would be a great thing if down the road they have an opportunity to work together, even if not totally merge, because it gets very political. Both of them have boards, have strong leadership, have the relationships, they have their own mission. But if they have an opportunity to work together, and then before they even, if that was a step to do before the merger, and they're not doing that today. And I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, these two leaders with these two powerful boards get an opportunity to work together.
And that's a great point, because your analogy of both of them probably stands true, but again, it's the corporate world that does not know where to go. And but as we look at the program of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, and it trickles down to the chambers on the local basis, what are some of the highlights of some of the programming you have for them?
A lot of the programming that we have through the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce comes through the foundation. So we develop our future leaders and business owners successful. So we develop templates and models on leadership of business owners at the foundational level, usually sponsored by big companies like Wells Fargo, for example. That's a phenomenal sponsor of the USACC. Through that, then we give it all back to the chambers, bring people in, all the expenses paid, travel, food and airline and so forth, and we get them for several days and talk about what it takes to write a business plan. What does that look like? How do you measure the success? Where do you access capital? What is the best way to do that? How do you do it in a way that's affordable that you can actually pay it back?
So making sure they're successful business owners.
Yes.
That is the key. So as we also, I know you have mentorships, I know you have an annual convention, just had one, but the other thing you have, which really stands out to me, because I am a bridge, with corporate America, being Hispanic, what's best, is you have a lot of corporate support. And you mentioned Wells Fargo. I know Anheuser-Busch, I used to work for them, seeing what they've done, but an amazing slew of corporate America that sees the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as a vital aspect of their growth. Why, if you could explain it to our viewers, is why is that important to them, and why is that important to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber?
So that requires a little bit of a story. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce hasn't always been as powerful as it is today, and a lot of the influence and the visibility that we've gained is through the leadership of our CEO, Javier Palomares. He has been a force to be reckoned with, and he has created a phenomenal momentum, credibility, exposure, visibility within both corporate America and the political environment in Washington, D.C. It is not a coincidence.
And it's based, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber is based in D.C.,
I was going to say, it's not a coincidence that the USACC headquarters is in D.C. So what we've done is we have about 220, I don't know how many exactly, but 220 corporate sponsors that we work closely with who are interested in working with us for a variety of angles. One might be the advocacy of whatever business they're involved in, telecommunications, transportation, distribution, whatever may be the case. And then they're also interested in reaching out this marketplace. In banking, for example, they're very much interested in finding out how many of these 4.1 million Hispanic-owned businesses in the country can they get, because they all need banking. It's a business model. So how do we market and sell to this community that represents a lot of potential for them? And also, how do we get the USACC and what they represent with their constituent to be a voice for them. So Javier has been nonstop in creating this partnership, creating what we call matchmaking. Sounds like it's a dating service, but it isn't. It's an opportunity where you get companies that need services, and then you get the Hispanic-owned businesses that provide that service, and you provide a match with a need provides the service, and you find a match, and you make that happen.
So as someone, where are you originally from? I'm sorry.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, but based in Ohio, is that correct?
I am based near Hartford, Avon, Connecticut, but from New York, really.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where Ohio. So when I look at that aspect of it, you're more, I would say, assimilated, educated, and as we have a growth in our Latino population in the Southeast, which is a very measurable growth within the last 20 years. They were never really there before, and now they're in large numbers. There is a disconnect of the viability of this population versus where I'm from, New Mexico or Connecticut. I mean, so how do you bridge that opportunity? Because if Wells Fargo is doing it on a national level, are they doing it on the local level? And there's some resistance there because the local people or leaders are not fully aware, even though it's a national campaign for a corporation. What do you say that those people are not taking advantage of the I guess the growth in the Southeast? Let's just focus on that. Okay.
I think the smart companies are looking at this market and looking at it as a segment, and from a segment perspective, meaning there's some people who are fully assimilated, people who've been here for 5 to 6 generations, and people who just came here a year ago. People who are fully bilingual, people who are English only, and people who are Spanish only. And you understand that if you're trying to build a business model, you can't just take all 3 and make them all work, because they won't. So in Texas and New Mexico, as examples, the Hispanic population has been there
Forever. We were there first. Yeah.
Right.
My Spanish, you know, my grandfather came from Spain and stuff.
So you understand that then if a company wants to do business, they can't treat you like you're just a recent immigrant to the country. In fact, it's offensive to those. So you better find out what is the opportunity. Equally, by the way, as it relates to businesses, we deal with the USACC and through its chambers with a mom and pop operation that it can be, you know, a reposteria down the corner, or it could be a $400 to $500 million business on services that some company provide. So we as an institution work with corporates to understand those differences so they can partner in the right way.
And most of these corporations now, because they're the leaders in diversity and inclusion, have a chief diversity officer.
Indeed.
And they see that as an opportunity for incremental sales, but being reflective of the demographic shift. I read in your bio that you are were a chief diversity officer for Aetna Insurance.
Yes.
And so recently we just elected a new mayor, Mayor Megan Berry, and she ran on the aspect that she would hire a chief diversity officer for Nashville. And Nashville's diversity in terms of white males versus females as well as other minorities is a very large disparity. What advice would you give her in leading this initiative, but also advice to those that are not really sure what that means? Does that make sense, that question?
Absolutely does. In fact, in my career of interview, I've been two times a chief diversity officer for Fortune 100 companies. And the first question I asked when I was meeting with the CEO is, what do you want? Meaning, chief diversity officer could be anything, or just about, as it relates to race, gender, and other things. So what do you want me to get more people who are Hispanics and women, and if you want me to do that and hire them, that's okay? Do you want to sell to them? Do you want to create a better culture? Do you want to reach out to the disability community, to gays and lesbians in the community? Do you want to create a sense of equality? Do you want to bring in and say whites matter? You know,
well, that's true.
Right? So tell me what you want, and sometimes it's just that segment of the population that has been underserved, and whatever that means to different people. The community, do that and give us a good brand in the community, and I'm happy. Another, the smart ones, and this is becoming more and more apparent today, is integrating this thinking into whatever the business rationale is for running a business. So if you're selling houses, as an example, is you want to make sure you sell houses to every potential buyer, not just a few, right? And how do you do that? Now, what does that mean? So in the case of the new mayor, is what does that mean to her, and how can we integrate whatever it is that's trying to accomplish? It's, from what I hear, is more on civic. It sounds like
I don't know, because I think if you have 50 departments, I think a diversity objective needs to be implemented in each of those departments, as well as an economic or affordability. All the objectives need to be intertwined in each of the departments, and they have a measurable, or not a goal, but an initiative to make sure diversity is within the departments, but someone helps them achieve that, helps them give them the tool to achieve that. So it's not just about employees, it's diversity of thought, diversity of solution, and diversity of progressiveness, I would think so.
Yeah, it is, but you can't, it's harder to define, and it's harder to pinpoint and focus. So when you start elevating, which I happen to agree with, but you elevate it to that level, it's really hard to say, go do it. How do you measure? Tell me about your thinking. Tell me about your line of thought. You just don't do it. So most of the time, it's really practical way to say, we have not had a voice of women in this place, or we African Americans have been ignored, or whatever segment of the population, similarly to the marketing of what you do. I say is, don't assume that a woman or a minority is going to be good for this role. That would be my recommendation, number one. It creates a small task force and trying to find out what is it that we want, and then identify who could do it. And whoever could do it, you can't do it by himself or herself. Create a group of people who can support these ideas and integrate it into whatever you do. Diversity has always been unknown of what it is. We just talked about it. So if you give it to somebody to do it,
it's defined.
And even if you think, if I'm the one chosen and I'm going to go out and do it, people, if I don't talk to them, they're going to assume that it is they're hiring more Hispanics because I happen to be
and that's what we don't want it to be. We're going to take a quick break, Raymond, and we're going to come back and continue talking with Raymond Arroyo, who is the chairman-elect of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and how it affects Nashville as well as the Hispanics on the whole. We'll be right back.
Thank you.